The smell of antiseptic had long stopped bothering Sophia. It was part of her world now, like the soft hum of machines, the quiet shuffle of nurses' shoes, and the distant echoes of whispered prayers that filled hospital corridors. She moved through it all with calm precision, her uniform crisp, her movements practiced, her smile gentle. But on that gray Monday morning, as she walked into room 214, something in the air felt different, softer, almost hesitant. The woman in the bed turned her head slowly. Her face was pale, framed by dark, tangled hair that looked like it hadn't felt a brush in days. Her name on the chart read Kate Whitmore, 35, recovering from a car accident. Broken ribs, fractured leg, a mild concussion, nothing life-threatening, but enough to leave her fragile and tired. "Good morning, Mrs. Whitmore," Sophia said, her tone bright but not forced. She was used to talking to patients who didn't talk back. But Kate's eyes lifted to hers, a quiet lost blue, and for a moment, Sophia forgot her next line. "It's Kate," the woman corrected softly, her voice hoarse, like she hadn't spoken in days. I don't like how Mrs. sounds anymore." Sophia smiled, a small one that touched her eyes. "Kate it is, then. How are you feeling today?" Kate's lips curled faintly, almost ironic. "Like I've been hit by a car?" Sophia laughed quietly, just a soft, surprised sound, and the air in the room shifted. Over the next few days, Sophia learned small things about her new patient. That Kate hated the taste of hospital tea. That she loved books but couldn't hold them with her bandaged arm. That she hadn't seen her husband, Daniel, in 3 days, not since the night she was admitted. When he did visit, it was brief, businesslike. He brought flowers, but never stayed long enough to see them fade. Sophia told herself not to think about that. She had cared for dozens of lonely patients before. But something about Kate made her linger longer than she should. On the 5th evening, she came by after her shift had technically ended. The corridors were quiet by then, the night shift already beginning. She stood outside room 214 for a moment before knocking softly. Kate looked up from the window, surprised. "You're still here?" "I had a few reports to finish," Sophia lied. "Thought I'd check if you needed anything before I left." Kate smiled, a tired but genuine smile. "Just company." Sophia hesitated, then stepped closer, pulling a chair near the bed. "Company I can do." They talked that night, not as nurse and patient, but as two women who had, in different ways, forgotten what it felt like to be seen. Kate told her about her job as an interior designer, her love for old houses and rain-soaked mornings. Sophia told her about her dog, about the smell of rain on pavement, about how she sometimes read to patients who couldn't sleep. "Would you read to me too?" Kate asked. Sophia blinked. "No?" Kate nodded, her eyes hopeful. "Only if you want to." Sophia glanced at the table. There was a worn paperback lying there, Wuthering Heights. She picked it up and opened to a random page. Her voice was soft, steady, filling the sterile room with a strange, fragile warmth. Kate closed her eyes, her breathing evening out, her lips barely smiling as the rain began to patter softly against the window. That became their quiet ritual. Every night after work, Sophia stopped by Kate's room. Sometimes she brought books. Sometimes she brought small things. Kate missed fresh strawberries, a scented lotion, a hair tie. And sometimes they just sat in silence, listening to the hum of machines and the soft drumming of rain. Sophia didn't notice the shift at first. The way her heart quickened when Kate smiled. The way her eyes lingered on Kate's face longer than necessary. But Kate noticed. She saw the way Sophia's hands trembled slightly when she adjusted her pillow, the way her eyes softened when their gazes met. One evening, when the rain outside had turned heavy, Kate spoke quietly. "You're different from the others." Sophia looked up from her notes. "Different how?" "You see people," Kate said. "Not just patients." Sophia froze for a second. Is that bad? Kate shook her head slowly. It's the kindest thing anyone's ever done for me. Sophia didn't know what to say. Her throat tightened. The room felt smaller suddenly, the air heavier with something unsaid. Later that night, when Sophia stood to leave, Kate's voice stopped her. Wait, Sophia turned. Kate's hand lifted slightly, trembling. Stay for a minute? Sophia hesitated, then nodded. She sat back down beside her. The room was dark except for the faint blue light from the monitor. Rain whispered against the glass. Kate's fingers brushed to Sophia's wrist, lightly at first as if testing if it was allowed. Sophia didn't pull away. The touch deepened, their hands slowly finding each other, fingers locking gently. Neither spoke. There was no need. Sophia could feel Kate's pulse beneath her skin, quick and uneven. For a moment, it didn't feel like a nurse holding her patient's hand. It felt like two broken hearts recognizing each other in the quiet. When Sophia finally left, she walked down the hallway with her hands still tingling, her mind replaying that touch again and again. In her small apartment later that night, she sat by the window, watching the same rain that had fallen outside Kate's room. She told herself it meant nothing, that she was only doing her job, that loneliness made people reach out for warmth where they could find it. But deep down, she already knew the truth. Something had changed in room 214, something soft, something dangerous, something that didn't belong but felt impossibly right. And for the first time in years, Sophia felt something she had forgotten, the beginning of wanting someone she could never have. Days turned into weeks, and room 214 no longer smelled like antiseptic and fear. The scent of lavender lotion, Sophia's quiet habit, had started to linger in the air, softening the edges of the sterile room. Kate's body was healing. The bruises on her arms had faded. The cast on her leg was due to come off soon. But emotionally, she seemed even more fragile than before. Sophia noticed it in the silences between their conversations, in the way Kate's eyes followed her when she moved around the room. It wasn't the look of a patient toward her nurse anymore. It was something quieter, deeper, almost pleading. Every morning, when Sophia entered with her clipboard and that professional smile, Kate's expression brightened as if sunlight had entered with her. You always come right on time, Kate said one morning, her voice low but warm. Sophia laughed softly, checking her vitals. That's part of the job, you know. Kate tilted her head, studying her. You make it sound like it's just a job. Sophia hesitated. For a second, her heart betrayed her. Sometimes it's more, she whispered, pretending to focus on the monitor. Kate smiled faintly, catching the edge in her tone. I thought so. Their conversations began to stretch beyond the usual nurse-patient chatter. They talked about books, childhood, music, and then slowly about pain. Kate spoke about Daniel, about the distance that had begun long before the accident, how love had turned into politeness, how silence had filled the house louder than any argument could. Sophia listened, trying to keep her face neutral. But something sharp twisted in her chest every time she heard Kate say his name. Sometimes, Kate said one night, her voice barely a whisper, he makes me feel like a ghost in my own home. Like I stopped existing when I stopped being useful. Sophia put the chart down. You're not a ghost, Kate. Kate looked up at her, her eyes tired but glistening. Then why does it feel like no one sees me except you? Sophia froze. The words hit her harder than they should have. She wanted to say something, anything, but before she could, the door opened. Daniel stood there. He was handsome in that detached, polished way. He carried a bouquet of roses, red and fresh, too perfect. He smiled at Kate as if she were an obligation on the to-do list. Hey, he said. You look better. Kate smiled faintly. I am. Her tone was polite, distant. Sophia stepped back, letting him take her place. But when Daniel turned to her, his nod was brief, dismissive. "Thank you, nurse." The word nurse fell between them like a wall. Sophia excused herself, her throat tight. She closed the door softly behind her, but not before she saw the way Daniel put the flowers on the table without meeting Kate's eyes. That night, Sophia sat in the empty nurse's lounge long after her shift ended. She stared at her hands, the ones that held Kate's when she couldn't breathe, when she couldn't sleep. Hands that had crossed a boundary she wasn't sure she could uncross. She told herself it was just empathy, compassion, the kind that made her good at her job. But deep down, she knew it was something else entirely. The next evening, a storm rolled over the city. Rain lashed the windows, thunder rumbling like an echo of everything unsaid. Sophia went to check on Kate before leaving, even though it wasn't her turn. She told herself it was just to make sure Kate was okay. When she entered, Kate was sitting up in bed, trembling. Her breathing was uneven, her fingers gripping the blanket. "Kate?" Sophia's voice softened immediately. "Hey, it's okay." "What's wrong?" Kate shook her head, gasping. I can't breathe." Sophia rushed forward, kneeling beside her. "It's a panic attack. Look at me. Just look at me." Kate's eyes locked on hers, wild and frightened. Sophia took her hand, pressing it over her own heartbeat. "Do you feel that? That's steady. Match me. Breathe with me. Inhale, exhale." Slowly, painfully, the air returned to Kate's lungs. Her hand clutched Sophia's as if it were her anchor to the world. When her breathing steadied, she broke down not with panic, but with sobs that came from somewhere deep inside. "I don't know why this keeps happening," she cried. "I'm supposed to be getting better, but I feel more broken every day." Sophia didn't speak. She simply gathered Kate into her arms, holding her close. Kate buried her face against Sophia's shoulder, her tears soaking through the thin fabric of her uniform. Sophia's heart ached with every tremor of Kate's body. "You're not broken," she whispered. "You're just trying to remember what it feels like to be safe." Kate clung tighter. "You make me feel that way." For a long moment, the world outside ceased to exist. There was only the sound of rain and two hearts beating too close. Too fast out when Kate finally pulled back. Her eyes were red, her lips trembling. "I'm sorry," she murmured. "I didn't mean to." Sophia shook her head. "Don't be." Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "You don't have to apologize for needing someone." Their eyes met again, closer this time, full of something unspoken but undeniable. The line between care and desire blurred until it was gone. Sophia forced herself to stand. She needed to leave before the air between them shattered her self-control completely. "You should rest," she said softly, though her voice trembled. Kate nodded, her hand still half raised as if reaching for her. "You'll come back tomorrow?" Sophia hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Always." As she walked down the corridor, her reflection in the glass looked different, haunted, alive, guilty. She could still feel Kate's heartbeat against her chest, the echo of her words lingering in her ears. That night, lying in her dark apartment, Sophia couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Kate's face, heard her broken voice saying, "You make me feel safe," and somewhere between guilt and longing, Sophia understood something she didn't want to admit. She wasn't just Kate's nurse anymore. She was her comfort, her warmth, her escape, and maybe, just maybe, she was falling in love with her. The day Kate was supposed to be discharged, a new complication emerged, an infection in her leg wound. Nothing severe, the doctor said, but enough to keep her homebound for a few more weeks under close observation. Daniel was away on business again. When the hospital offered to assign a home nurse, Kate refused anyone but Sophia. Sophia knew she should have declined. She had already crossed too many invisible lines. But when she saw Kate's name on the request form, She couldn't say no. She told herself it was just temporary, just professional. But deep down, she knew that wasn't true. Kate's home was quiet, too large for one person. Everything was neat, sterile decorated with a kind of elegance that looked perfect, but felt lonely. Sophia noticed the untouched piano in the corner, the faint dust on framed wedding photos, the absence of warmth in every polished surface. Every morning she came, checked the wound, changed the bandages, prepared tea, and left. Every night she thought of Kate Dot. Then came the night of the storm. Rain hammered against the tall windows. Wind moaned through the cracks. The lights flickered once, twice, before settling into a dim glow. Sophia was in the kitchen, rinsing the teacups, when Kate called from the living room. Her voice was small, uncertain. "Sophia, can you stay a little while tonight? Just until the rain stops." Sophia froze, hands still wet. She turned slowly, finding Kate on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, her leg propped on a cushion. Her eyes shimmered in the half-light, blue and lonely. "I shouldn't," Sophia said, almost to herself. "You need rest." "I can't sleep when it storms," Kate murmured. "It reminds me of the accident. The sound of glass, the rain, the fear. It comes back every time." Sophia hesitated only a second before walking over. She sat beside her, close enough to feel the warmth from her body. "I'll stay until it quiets," she said softly. They sat in silence, listening to the rain crash against the world outside. The lamp's light drew soft gold circles across the walls, painting shadows that moved with every flicker of lightning. Kate's voice broke the silence. "Do you ever think about what makes people fall in love?" Sophia turned to her, startled. "That's a complicated question." Kate smiled faintly. "I know, but I keep thinking about it. How sometimes it's not about perfection. Sometimes it's about who makes you feel seen again." Sophia's throat tightened. Kate looked down at her hands. "You've been here for me in ways no one ever has. You talk to me like I matter. You make me laugh, even when it hurts. You made me want to live again." "Don't," Sophia whispered, her heart pounding. "You don't know what you're saying." Kate shook her head. "I do. I know it's wrong. I know you're my nurse. I know I shouldn't feel this way." She looked up, eyes glistening with tears. "But when you walk in, the noise in my head goes quiet. I don't know what this is, Sophia, but I can't lose it. I can't lose you." The words hung heavy between them, trembling like the rain outside. Sophia's pulse thundered in her ears. She wanted to move, to say something rational, something professional. But all she saw was Kate's face, so open, so broken, so painfully honest. "You can't say that," Sophia whispered. "You can't because I won't be able to stop feeling it too." Kate reached for her hand. The same hand that had bandaged her wounds, held her steady, guided her through sleepless nights. "Then don't stop." Sophia closed her eyes. "Kate, please. This isn't right. You're married. I'm your nurse. I could lose everything." Kate's fingers tightened around hers. "You already mean everything." The storm outside grew louder, almost echoing the war inside Sophia's chest. She felt the guilt, the fear, the ache. But beneath it all was something pure and undeniable pull that defied every rule. She had lived by Dot. Her voice trembled when she spoke. "You're going to make me do something I'll never forgive myself for?" Kate's eyes filled. "Then let me carry the blame." And in that fragile second between duty and desire, silence and thunder, they both gave in. Sophia leaned forward, her forehead resting against Kate's. The air between them felt electric, trembling with restraint. Kate's breath hitched. A tear slid down her cheek, and when their lips met, it wasn't hunger, it was heartbreak. It was gratitude. It was everything they'd both been too scared to admit. The kiss was soft, trembling, and full of sorrow. It tasted of rain and tears and something sacred. For a moment, time stopped. The storm faded into background noise. The world outside ceased to matter. When they finally pulled apart, both were crying. Neither spoke. The silence was heavy, but it didn't feel empty. It felt final. Inevitable. Sophia reached up and brushed away a tear from Kate's cheek. "We shouldn't have done that," she whispered. "I know," Kate breathed. "But I don't regret it." Sophia's heart cracked open at the sound of her voice. She wanted to stay in that moment forever, but she knew she couldn't, not without destroying them both. "I have to go," she said, standing slowly, forcing her hands to let go of what they had found. Kate didn't stop her. She only looked up, eyes full of unshed tears, and said quietly, "Then promise me something. Don't disappear. Even if this can't exist, please. Don't vanish from my life." Sophia nodded weakly, unable to find her voice. She stepped into the hallway. The storm had softened to a whisper, but inside her, everything was still breaking. That night, she drove home in silence. The rain blurred the road, and the ghost of Kate's touch still lingered on her lips. In her apartment, she stood before the mirror, staring at her reflection, at the woman who had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. She thought of Kate's confession, the warmth of her skin, the pain in her eyes. And for the first time in her life, Sophia understood the cruel beauty of Forbidden's love. It wasn't about possession or passion. It was about two hearts finding each other when they shouldn't and holding on. Even when the world demanded they let go. As she turned off the light and lay in the dark, the storm outside faded completely. But inside her, it would rage for years to come. The hospital days ended quietly. No farewells, no promises. Just a signature on a discharge paper and a silent glance that said too much. Kate was home now, recovering faster than anyone expected. And yet some wounds, the invisible kind, healed slower than any broken bone, Sophia told herself. She was only visiting to monitor Kate's progress. She even wore her nurse's badge sometimes, as if to remind herself where the line was. But her heart stopped listening long ago. Every Saturday morning, she found herself on the same familiar street, coffee in hand, pretending she was just passing by. Kate would open the door before Sophia could even knock. "Hey," Kate would whisper softly, smiling in a way that made guilt feel like a distant noise. Inside, the world felt smaller, safer. The smell of vanilla candles, soft jazz from the radio, the ticking of the clock between their unspoken words. Sophia would check Kate's vitals, note her blood pressure, adjust her medications, all while pretending her hands weren't trembling. Their conversations were longer now. They laughed about little things, the hospital food, the sound of the rain, the way Daniel's expensive suits always looked out of place in that house. And between those laughs, there were pauses, moments too charged to ignore. One afternoon, Kate brushed a loose strand of hair from Sophia's face. "You look tired," she said softly. Sophia smiled weakly. "Maybe I just missed my favorite patient." Kate's lips curved, the kind of smile that carried both danger and tenderness. That was how it began. Quiet mornings turning into afternoons. Tea shared with trembling hands, small touches that felt like confessions. Every time Sophia left, she told herself it was the last visit. Every time she came back, but guilt has a way of living in the background, patient, watchful. Sophia began to notice Daniel's calls during her visits, the tension in Kate's eyes, the way her laughter suddenly dimmed when she heard the front gate creak. One day, Sophia arrived early, too early. The curtains were still drawn. Kate opened the door in a robe, startled. "Daniel's home?" she whispered. "He took a day off." Sophia froze. The air between them turned sharp. She should have left, but something in Kate's voice, fear, maybe longing, made her stay a moment longer. They stood there, inches apart. "This is wrong," Sophia finally said. "I know," Kate whispered, "but I don't want right anymore. I just want real." Sophia's chest tightened. For a moment, all the rules, all the guilt, disappeared beneath the sound of those words. Then Daniel's footsteps echoed from down the hall. Sophia panicked, stepping back, nearly dropping her bag. Kate pushed her gently toward the back door. "Go," she mouthed, eyes wide with fear. Sophia slipped out, her breath shaking, heart pounding like a trapped bird. She stood outside under the gray sky, realizing just how fragile their world had become. One wrong moment, and everything could collapse. That night, she didn't sleep. Every memory replayed in her head. Kate's smile, her trembling voice, the fear in her eyes. Guilt settled deep in her chest, heavy and silent. She typed a message to Kate, then erased it. Typed again. Erased again. At 2:14 a.m., her phone buzzed. A message from Kate. Just one line. "Maybe love isn't always meant to heal. Sometimes it breaks us before it saves us." Sophia stared at the screen for a long time, her throat tightening. She wanted to reply, to say, "I'd still choose the breaking if it means you." But she didn't. Instead, she closed her eyes and whispered to the dark, "Then let me be the one who breaks." Days passed. Their visits grew shorter, quieter. They still shared tea, still laughed, but something had changed. Every touch now carried the weight of a secret. Every hug felt like a goodbye waiting to happen. One Sunday morning, as Sophia prepared to leave, Kate held her hand longer than usual. "If this ends badly," Kate said softly, "don't let it ruin how we began." Sophia wanted to promise, but words wouldn't come. So she nodded, and that silence became their final vow. Outside, the sky was turning gray again. Rain started to fall, slow, hesitant drops like the story repeating itself. Sophia looked back once through the fogged glass of the window and saw Kate watching her leave, one hand pressed to the glass. Her eyes full of something between love and surrender. That image stayed with Sophia long after she drove away. It lingered in every mirror, every dream, every quiet moment she wished she could forget, because love, once hidden, doesn't die. It simply waits in the silence, in the guilt, in the places where it can no longer be spoken. It happened on a Thursday morning, quiet, ordinary, cruel. The kind of day that doesn't warn you it's about to end your world. Sophia was halfway through her shift when her phone buzzed. A single message from Kate. "Daniel knows." The words blurred as she read them. For a moment, the hospital walls seemed to tilt. The steady rhythm of heart monitors in the background suddenly sounded too loud, too fast. She typed back a dozen replies, but deleted each one before sending. There were no right words for something like this. Later that evening, when she reached Kate's house, everything was different. The door was slightly open, voices echoed inside, angry, broken, overlapping. Daniel's voice thundered through the hallway. "Do you think I'm stupid, Kate?" He shouted. "You think I wouldn't notice the messages? The late night calls? The lies?" Sophia froze on the doorstep. Kate stood in the living room, pale, trembling, clutching her phone like it burned her hand. Daniel towered over her, holding the unlocked screen in his fist. When his eyes found Sophia in the doorway, silence fell like glass shattering. "You," he hissed. "The nurse. The woman my wife kept talking about. You were supposed to help her, not..." He couldn't even finish the sentence. The air was thick with rage and disbelief. Sophia stepped forward, her voice barely steady. "Daniel, please, don't. You don't get to say my name." Kate moved between them, her voice shaking. "Stop it, Daniel. She didn't take anything from me. She gave me back something you never could." He turned to her, stunned. "And what's that supposed to mean?" Kate's eyes filled with tears. "Peace. She gave me peace." For a long moment, none of them spoke. The sound of rain began tapping against the windows, the same rain that had witnessed their first touch. Now watching the ending, Daniel looked broken, betrayed, humiliated. "You're sick, both of you," he muttered, grabbing his coat and slamming the door behind him. The echo of it vibrated through the walls, through Sophia's chest. Kate sank to the floor, sobbing. Sophia rushed to her, but before she could speak, Kate whispered, "It's over, Sophia. He's going to ruin everything." And he did, within days. The whispers began. Complaints, investigations, words like inappropriate, unprofessional, unethical followed Sophia through hospital corridors that once felt like home. The board meeting was silent except for the sound of paper being shuffled. "We have no choice," the director said, not meeting her eyes. "You violated the code of care." Sophia nodded numbly. There was no defense that wouldn't sound like confession. By the end of that week, she was no longer Nurse Sophia Bennett. Just Sophia, the woman who loved her patient, the woman everyone pitied or judged. Kate called once after that. Her voice was tired, trembling. "He's taking me abroad for therapy," she said. "They say I need space, but I'm not thinking clearly." Sophia's heart sank. "And what do you want?" Kate was silent for a long time. "You," she finally whispered. "But love doesn't always give us choices." That was the last time they spoke. Weeks passed. The world kept spinning, but Sophia's didn't. Her apartment grew quiet, her days longer. She walked the city streets sometimes, passing cafes and bookstores they had talked about visiting. Each one felt like a memory that never got to happen. Then one morning, the hospital mailroom called. "There's a letter here for you," the receptionist said softly. "No return address." Sophia's hands trembled as she opened it. Kate's handwriting, soft, slanted, familiar. "My dearest Sophia, by the time you read this, I'll be far away. Daniel says I need distance." Maybe he's right. Maybe healing means letting go of the person who made you feel alive. I don't regret us. Not a single heartbeat. You found me when I was broken, and somehow you loved me back to life. You made me laugh again. You made me feel. But I can't keep fighting a world that won't let us exist. I'm tired, Sophia. I'm so tired. Please don't hate me for leaving. Remember me not as the woman who destroyed your career, but as the woman who was finally brave enough to love. And if you ever walk past the room where we first met, sit there for a while. Feel the light. Think of me. You were my nurse, Sophia, but in truth, you were the one who healed me." Kate, the letter ended there. No address. No promise. Just her name, fading like the last breath of a song. Sophia folded it carefully and walked back to the ward where it all began. Room 412. The bed was empty now, sheets freshly pressed, sunlight spilling through the blinds. The scent of antiseptic filled the air, cold and clean, too clean for the kind of memories it held. She sat on the chair beside the bed, the same one where she had once held Kate's hand for the first time. Her fingers brushed the metal rail, tracing the same spot where Kate had once smiled through pain, and then finally she broke. Tears came quietly at first, then all at once, heavy and unstoppable. The letter crumpled in her fist, her voice shaking as she whispered, "I was your nurse, but you were the one who healed me." The rain started again outside, soft, rhythmic, merciless. The same rain that had witnessed their beginning now mourned their end. Somewhere far away, maybe Kate heard it too. And for a fleeting moment, maybe they both remembered what it felt like to be seen, to be held, to be loved, even if the world called it wrong. Time didn't erase her. It only softened the edges, like waves smoothing stones. Slowly, patiently, endlessly, years had passed since that letter. The world had changed in small, indifferent ways. New buildings rose where old ones fell. The hospital replaced its staff, repainted its walls. But inside Sophia, something remained untouched. A quiet ache that learned to live without a voice. She now worked at a small community clinic on the outskirts of the city, a place filled with children's laughter, the smell of disinfectant and blooming jasmine from the garden outside. The days were slower here, gentler. Patients called her Miss Sophia, not Nurse Bennett. They didn't know the story behind her calm eyes. They only saw kindness, the kind that came from someone who had once been broken and still chose to heal others' dots sometimes. In the stillness of evening, she'd sit by the window after everyone had left. The rain would begin, softly at first, then heavier, and she'd close her eyes. And just like that, she'd be back there again. Room 412, the soft beeping of the monitor. Kate's laughter echoing between rain and memory. Sophia never spoke of her. Not once, but her silence said everything. Every gentle gesture, every patient smile, it all came from the woman who taught her what compassion truly meant. She had stopped waiting for a message years ago. Stopped checking old letters, stopped hoping for closure. But grief doesn't vanish. It changes shape. It becomes part of how you see the world. Then, one morning, something strange happened. It was a Monday. The sky was gray, heavy with rain clouds that promised another long day. Sophia was sorting through paperwork when the receptionist entered with a small brown envelope. "No sender," she said. "Just this." Sophia frowned slightly. The envelope had no address, no return name, only her clinic's title written in careful cursive. She opened it slowly. Inside was a check, a large donation, enough to keep the clinic running for months. At the bottom, there was a note. Just a single letter, written in ink that had slightly bled through the paper. K. Sophia froze. Her breath caught in her throat. It couldn't be. Her eyes blurred, her hands trembling as she traced that letter again and again. K. She leaned back in her chair, heart pounding like it hadn't in years. The sound of rain began against the window, soft, steady, familiar. For a long moment, she said nothing. She just let the tears come, slow, quiet. Unstoppable. Kate was still out there, alive, remembering. Sophia smiled through the tears, whispering into the silence, "You kept your promise, didn't you? You never really left." The rest of the day felt different. Every patient's smile, every small kindness, it all glowed with new meaning. She walked through the clinic halls, running her fingers along the walls, as if touching time itself. That evening, when everyone had gone home, she stepped outside into the rain. It was just like that first night, the same sound, the same scent of wet earth, the same softness in the air. She closed her eyes and lifted her face to the sky. In her mind, she saw Kate again, not as a patient, not as a woman torn between duty and desire, but as someone who had once made her feel seen. The way she laughed, the way she said Sophia's name like it meant something sacred, the way she reached for her hand that first night and didn't let go. Sophia whispered, her voice breaking gently, "You were my patient, but I was the one who learned how to feel again." The words disappeared into the sound of the rain, a confession carried only by the wind. Inside the clinic, a small photograph hung on the wall. It showed a field of lilac taken years ago. No one knew who put it there, but every time Sophia passed by it, she smiled softly, because Kate once said lily were her favorite white, simple, healing. And in that quiet corner of the world, between medicine and memory, between rain and forgiveness, Sophia finally understood something. Love doesn't need to last forever to be real. Sometimes it only needs a moment, a touch, a heartbeat, a single act of care to change everything. The rain outside grew heavier. The windows fogged. The lights dimmed. Sophia stayed by the doorway, watching droplets race down the glass, her reflection fading into the gray dot in another city. Maybe Kate was standing by a window too, looking at the same rain, smiling at the same memory. Two hearts, miles apart, still bound by something invisible and kind. The story didn't end when they broke apart. It simply changed form because the healing that began with her never really ended. It lived on in the kindness Sophia gave, in the people she helped, in the quiet moments when the world fell silent and all that remained was Love Dot as the final light of evening disappeared. Sophia whispered one last time to the rain, "Some loves never fade. They just find softer ways to stay." The screen fades to black. The rain continues. And somewhere in the sound between drops, her heart still beats for her.